So I don't even know what I just saw. And what I'm talking about is the 1998 film Wishbone's Dog Days of the West, starring Soccer the dog. And this movie for me was just a journey, and we'll get to it later. But did you know that Soccer had his own rock star movie night in a hotel room? And what kind of film did he shoot with George Bush? Spoiler alert, it's not that gross. Learn about all this and more as we're hoofing it in Hollywood. The birds and the beasts are on the screen. They're the ones that you have seen. You've watched them since childhood as they're hoofing it in Hollywood. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hoofin' It in Hollywood.
Hello.
Pew, 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 pew. Wild West, Wild, Wild West.
We're still here.
I'm your host, Paul, and with me today, I have my co-hosts, Melissa.
Buckle up, buckaroos.
Audrey.
Hi.
And Jordan.
Hello.
Melissa's face.
I thought we were doing, Western-themed greetings.
I'll take grits and pancakes for my breakfast.
Howdy, partners. I'm Paul, your host, and today I have my co-host, Audrey.
Yeah.
Melissa.
Buckle up, buckaroos.
And Tan Bucket Jordan.
How do?
Go ahead, Jordan, and put that snake in your boot.
What? Paul,
All right, Jordan, take it away.
Fill facts. Okay, y'all. Usually we do these films, and they don't need any kind of explanation. It's just the film. It's a one-off, or maybe it has a sequel. Today's a little bit different, and I'm going to be doing my part a little bit differently for you all.
For y'all.
This movie is based upon a series called Wishbone, and I'm going to go a little bit and talk about the series first because I think it will make more sense when we get into talking about the movie. The Wishbone TV series began in 1995, and it started out as a pilot to see if the people liked the idea, and they ended up doing 49 episodes over 2 seasons of this show. The show won 4 Daytime Emmys and a Peabody Award, and the Peabody Awards are kind of like the Grammys, I guess, or even maybe like the Pulitzers for broadcast, which includes like radio and some TV. So it was very well received and loved. It was a series created by Rick Duffield, produced by Betty Buckley, and written by Stephanie Simpson and Mo Rocca, as well as a lot of other people. Starring Soccer the dog as Wishbone, and then a man named Larry Brantley did Wishbone's voice. Also, Jordan Wall, Christy Abbott, Mary Wall, Angie Hughes, and Adam Springfield. So the concept of a Wishbone episode is that it's this dog that lives with his family. The Talbots, I believe, was their name. They live in a town called Oakdale, Texas. There's a bunch of wacky characters that live in the town, and something happens every single episode like you would normally have in a sitcom or a family comedy show. The difference being that Wishbone tells a story inside the episode, and the story is usually some piece of classical literature, like Mark Twain, for example. So he'd be telling the story of, I almost said Tom Cruise, of
Mission
now
Impossible.
I can't think of anything but Tom Cruise. Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn would get a treatment inside this, and so when he usually plays one of the characters in the story as he's telling the story. So there's 2 storylines in every single episode of Wishbone. One is the normal, what's happening with Wishbone and the family, and the other like some kind of classical piece of literature. And a lot of times it's really heady or deep stuff. Deeper than a lot of kids shows were probably when this came out in the 90s. Stuff that they weren't really afraid of writing actual messages and things that they wanted kids to learn. And I want to introduce something new this episode as well. And I want to talk about the animal rules in my section, because it's going to come into play a little bit because the rules change when you watch this movie. And when I say animal rules, what I'm talking about is like, can the people hear the animal talking? Can the animal talk at all? Are they talking in real life? That kind of thing. So in Wishbone, the rules for real world are Wishbone is a very smart and intelligent dog, and everybody knows it, but they don't hear him talk. Now, he's voiced by an actor that's basically voicing his inner monologue through these episodes. Now, he understands his humans, and they'll say something, and he'll make a little joke about what they say, but they don't hear him saying that.
Hi there, little fella. Come on up here.
I'll handle this, boys. Grandpa, it's like this. Mr. King claims that Wanda doesn't really own the Chronicle, and we were wondering if you could provide us with any information at all that could possibly help, or you could just scratch my head.
Now, it's a little bit different with the classical literature part of it, where Wishbone himself sort of like is the actor playing a character in this retelling. And so to the other characters in the story, Wishbone's not a dog. Wishbone is a human, and he's that character, and they can hear everything that he says, and everything that he says is spoken out loud, and everything that he does is with intent and purpose, and the humans know this, and he's helping them. So
It's very high concept.
it gets really like you could like get really deep, right? Like you could start thinking about like, what is he doing? Like, is this the joke, or is this like it? There's kind of a meta that goes along, and it's not that hard to understand. I'm overhyping it a little bit.
It's hard to explain. But
Yeah.
when
It's
you're
hard to explain.
When you're watching it, it's not hard to understand, but explaining it is nearly impossible.
That's Wishbone in a nutshell. Okay, so the movie, basically the same production crew. Actually was the last thing that they did as a group together was this movie, Wishbone's Dog Days of the West. It was released in 98. It went straight to video. And this one, the literary classic that's being portrayed, is actually a collection of short stories by the author O. Henry, which was the pen name of William Sidney Porter, who wrote lots of short stories, but also the book The Gift of the Magi. And the collection of short stories that this book was from was called The Heart of the West. Currently 7.1 IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 40% audience score. This movie won one of the Daytime Emmys for art direction, set direction, scenic design in 1998. There's two stories. The Oakdale story, which is the real story. Wishbone and his family are attending a carnival, and Wishbone notices some stage lighting that's about to crash down, and he barks, and it alerts this woman named Wanda Gilmore, who she warns everyone away and says, like, catastrophe is about to strike. And the thing falls down, and everybody's like, well, how did you know? And she said Wishbone helped her. So she got interviewed by the news, who kind of start to paint her as a local hero, but then it seems the reporter has other motives, and he starts probing into some of the things that she's done in her past, and she's just like, well, why is he doing this? He starts asking her, like, do you own the newspaper? Do you own this? Do you own these other buildings downtown? And so he starts running these heavily edited pieces, and it kind of turns into like a lynching piece where she's just like hung out to dry by this reporter. Everybody knows Wanda, and they love Wanda, so they know that she's not like a bad person like these news reports are painting her to be. The kids start to like look into it for her and figure out what's going on, and they use Wishbone for help. They find out that it's all because a rival newspaper owner who had been trying to pressure her into selling her newspaper so that he could take her newspaper and then just like add it to his conglomerate. And Wishbone helps them find evidence that Wanda is the true owner. And so it's kind of like a Scooby-Doo ending. Everybody lives happily ever after they figure out what he was doing. So switching over to the Western story, this is about Long Bill Longley, played by Wishbone. He's an outlaw, but the outlaw had morals. So he settled down and he started a bank somewhere in the American West. And the story begins with an auditor visiting, asking him about a certain loan that he had made. The loan had no paperwork, and so it was deemed illegal. And he said, well, you know, my friend had found these cattle down there, and he knew that he could sell these cattle for like 3 times what they were worth. So I loaned him the $10,000, and he's going to come back with $30,000, and we'll get that $10,000 back. And the auditor doesn't like that. He's like, no, you know, you can't do that. That's highly illegal. But I'll give you a couple days. I'm going to go audit this other bank, and you'll get, you know, if you have the money when I come back, we just won't say anything about it. So that sets up, you know, he's got to get the money back. His friend who he loaned the money to felt really bad. He tries stuff like robbing a stagecoach to get the money, but he's like, no, we don't have to do that. We'll figure something out. All the while, there's this guy who the marshal of the town tells them to watch because he's a drunk. The bad guy that was going to get drunk, his name was Calliope Catesby, which was a crazy name.
Amazing.
Love
Only
it.
ever heard of a woman named Calliope. Love
Right.
That's
her,
what I
man.
said to
Me
Jordan.
too. So he's going to go on another shooting spree. Bill and his friend Tom keep an eye on him. The crowning piece in this whole story is This woman owns a restaurant.
With the best looking food I've ever seen.
Yes.
They keep going to this restaurant called Mame Dugan's. And Mame Dugan is the proprietor, and all the men that go there just love to eat her food, and everybody just loves Mame's food. And Bill Bill's friend says he's going to go ask her on a date. And it comes out that, like, she has this big thing where she hates men because all men do is eat and eat and eat. And that's all men do.
Eat and eat.
Dude, it was like a 5-minute monologue about it.
Until all you resemble is a ruminant biped.
For 2 years, I've watched men eat, 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 until they represent nothing on earth to me but ruminant bipeds.
I mean, she's not wrong.
So Calliope does go on his bender, and he, like, shoots at everybody. He's like, I think he's literally trying to kill people. He was shooting at people with the guns.
Headshots, dude. He was going for headshots, man.
In the whole melee that's happening, Tom's friend comes back from the cattle drive with the money, and he finds out that that's happening. So that part of the story seemed to get kind of resolved. Well, they do resolve that at the end because the auditor's boss comes too, and then they have the money. He's like, well, why the hell did you bring me out here for all this? So that kind of ended just with a flat note. There wasn't much more to that. But really, the shootout part was like the big climactic part, and that scene seemed to take an hour of the movie.
But it was so long.
It went on forever.
People would come out after he'd been shooting for like 10 minutes and then act surprised that people were shooting. I'm like, where have you been? This town has 10 buildings in it, and the shooting's been going on for a good 15 minutes, and you come out and all of a sudden act like, oh my God, somebody's shooting out here.
I've never seen this in a Western movie in a standoff, but when they go back to back and they start counting and they just run away, that blew my mind. I was just like,
Yeah.
I've never ever seen that before.
So what Paul's talking about is when Calliope and Wishbone's friend are doing the standoff, and then Calliope's like still counting, but Wishbone and his friend just run away.
They just bailed.
That was
They're doing
amazing.
a duel, right, where they have to count 10 paces
Yeah.
and walk away from each other.
It was funny.
That's one of the moments where I felt like we were watching something more than just like a kid's show, because I was like, that was honestly clever, and I've never seen.
There was, okay, so not only that, but the set was like pretty good for a crummy straight to video. Like that Western set looked like what might have been like an old Western set. I wondered if they had recycled it from an old movie or something, but it turns out no, that they had made. It seemed like they had made that set.
Well, and that was one of the things that both like the show and like the movie was kind of known for, was any time they went to a different time period when they were doing the literature novels, people were taken away with how much was going into the art department. That's what was actually eating up a bunch of the budget, was like the clothing, the sets and everything, to the point where people were getting calls and they're like, when did you go to Greece, dude? And it was like, no, we didn't go to Greece.
So there was so much to the Oakdale story that was just insane to put in a show that's supposed to be for kids, because there are things like, I don't know, like why, like you would be asking like why this man is twisting this woman's words and like why he's going after her so hard, and then the stuff in the Western story about the loan, like a call loan, and like not having backing papers. Like what kid is going to know anything about what he's talking about? I don't know. It was just the weirdest plot for a kid's movie that I've ever seen.
I thought too. The other thing that was like wild though was with this really adult narrative and like their approach, you're seeing like a dog's paw like butter bread in the same shot, and it's just like, I don't know how to take this. It's like,
so that's what I meant with like some of the dog is playing a real person, but he's doing things the way that a dog would.
Yeah.
And his counterpart or his other actor in the scene is not reacting to it like weird. Like it would, like, you know, if you see a dog doing something with its paws that a person would do with its hands, you would be like, what is this person doing? But they just acted like it was totally normal.
Treat him like a person.
I just wanted to ask one quick question, Jordan, because you said you didn't watch it growing up. Am I the only one who watched some Wishbone growing up?
I watched maybe an episode or two, but not much.
I was gonna say I saw an episode or two when it was on. Like I remember it being on, and I would watch it just to see what it was about, but I didn't watch it regularly.
I did not, and that's part of my journey today, is realizing what I was watching.
I really loved the movie. I feel like this is probably one of my favorites that we've watched. I loved it. Even though it was too long.
Yeah.
It was lovely to get another, I don't know, to kind of go back to Wishbone and watch the movie, and you could see the love in it. You could like tell.
For real, you really could.
I totally agree. I think that this was probably one of the funnest movies. You know, they intentionally made it so that like kids and adults could watch it, and that came through. Like, their jokes were on point. It wasn't little kid jokes. It was just like solid jokes. And like structurally, there was so much to hang your hat on. Like, it was weird because I've never seen this level of like authenticity in like a children's story.
I didn't know that it was like what it was, and I may have to
neither.
go back and watch some of the other Wishbone. I remember watching them. I mean, I knew the formula, but I didn't know this level that it went, I guess. I didn't know that it went so hard.
I agree with pretty much everything you guys have said. I knew of Wishbone when I was younger. I feel like I watched an episode here or there. Going back to this movie was fun because I got to learn about the character all over again. But I don't know. I think it was a decent movie, but I did feel like it was a little long. I felt like some of the scenes just felt like they went on forever, which
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did.
You know, it's gonna happen. It was a good movie. It was just, I didn't think it was like the best movie.
I guess the biggest thing to take away from the whole film was that Mame Dugan hated men. She really...
Yeah, and I was telling Jordan, I'm like,
him.
she's 100% a lesbian. She hates men. I'm like, I'm here for it. But yeah, she was awesome.
I was like, I feel like with every line of her monologue, my jaw just dropped a little further. I was like, whoa. She opened with like, I see men as a tomb for food. I was like, damn.
Yeah, it was pretty
Jesus.
epic.
Do you know what a man is in my eye? He's a tomb. He's a sarcophagus for the interment of beef, steak, pork chops, liver and onions, bacon, ham and eggs. He's that and nothing more.
Oh, God, there's so much.
Do you got anything else, Jordan?
That's all, Paul.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and take it over for Creature Chronicles. What's that? It's Creature Chronicles. So the lead actor in this film was Soccer the dog, which was a Jack Russell Terrier. There were a couple stand-ins that also played the role of Wishbone, but he was about 90% of the film, so I'm only going to talk primarily about Soccer. And a lot of the information I'm going to talk about came from Texas Monthly, which I will put a link in the show notes, but they had a God-level article about the show, and I highly, highly encourage you to check it out. It gives such an unbelievable, rare insight into television production, and this show, with just how much care and effort went into it, it's a fascinating read. And you can get like the article for free if you sign up. Anyways, it was awesome.
Or you can just click X on the box and you also get to read the article.
Yeah, you can you can put your credit card in, and then you can hit submit and then cancel in a week if you remember to.
And then you can send it to my personal email address if you really want to.
Well, I don't know how much of Texas Monthly you want, but just a little bit about the breed of a Jack Russell Terrier. It's a British breed of a small terrier. It was developed in the 19th century by Reverend John Russell in North Devon, England, for fox hunting purposes. So yeah, they're usually pretty small, about 10 to 12 inches. They weigh about 11 to 13 pounds. They're generally healthy, and they have a lifespan of about 12 to 13 years. And they're known for their intelligence, high energy, and strong hunting instincts. But because they're so active, they require a lot of mental and physical stimulation. Otherwise, they get really rambunctious and they might fuck shit up. So they are a testament to the phrase, big things come in small packages.
I was going to say that's what she said, but you know. You know.
Okay, so let's get to the history of soccer. Before I dive into this, if you look...
Wait, are you talking about the sport or the dog?
The dog, soccer.
I was going to say it sounded like the sport, which is funny.
Fun trivia, if you look at Soccer to the Dog's Wikipedia page, there's like a section that says like named after, and it says soccer ball, and there's a link to like look at soccer balls on Wikipedia on there. I just thought that was like really ridiculous.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Soccer was born May 17th in Connecticut in 1988. He was 2 months old when he was adopted by Jackie Martin Captain. So do you know why he got named Soccer?
Did he like to kick around soccer balls when he was a pup?
I know he had a ball he loved to chew that was a soccer ball.
It's because of the pattern on his face, kind of looks like a soccer ball. That's what they said.
This is a good explanation because I was trying to figure out if it was like a chicken or an egg thing. Like I was like, did they name him Soccer because he liked a little soccer ball toy, or did they give him a soccer ball toy because his name was Soccer? So it seems like the latter. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah, he's got like little cute patches on his face, and so.
Not a good name.
Yeah, kind of a boring name, but we still love him.
It's better than like Sure Grip Rattler, so.
This is true.
Doc's keeping time.
So he started off his acting career in commercials for both Nike.
Did you say Nike?
Did you mean Nike?
Nike.
Oh, people call it Nikes. I got my pair of Nikes, dude.
They do. They say Nike.
Wait, do they?
Do people really say Nikes?
Yeah.
But yeah, he got his start in acting in commercials for both Nike and the dog food companies Mighty Dog and Chuckwagon, which I've never heard of Chuckwagon.
Heard of Chuckwagon.
Have you?
Yeah. They had a cool commercial.
But he ended up getting his big role on the TV show Wishbone, which we've covered. It went from 1995 to 1997. Fun trivia about that show, before they started doing any of the filming and they were writing it, the original name that they had for Wishbone was called Knuckles.
I saw that.
Yeah. Isn't that gross?
And they're like, you can't call a dog Knuckles.
Weren't they talking about making him a bulldog?
Yeah, they were kind of playing around with different ideas.
And then they were going to keep the name Knuckles, and someone was like, you can't call the dog Knuckles.
Yeah, you can't.
Like, I feel like that... Did you say bulldog, right? Because I feel like Knuckles would work for that type of dog.
Right.
But yeah, it just doesn't work for
I feel like they
Jack
didn't
Russell.
evolve it for a Jack Russell. Yeah, they had to change that name.
For the audition, it was held like out in a motel in LA, and basically they just needed like an area where they could have a bunch of dogs and grass, so if they have to use the potty. But they ended up going through 100 dogs, going through these tryouts, and it was the very last dog that showed up was Soccer. And when he was hanging out, he did a backflip, and it won over the casting directors. And so they're like, I've never seen a dog do a backflip, and that's awesome. Soccer apparently had a very expressive face, and so that won him over as well, because he had a lot of range in his face and like control of his face. And so between that and the backflip, they're like, done deal, y'all. So,
and he was really focused. I think I read like he could focus on things.
Yeah. Jackie Captain, she just talked a lot about like training him and everything, and apparently he was just like bomb on set because he was just so reliable for his acting. The director of photography, Bert Gerthy, said Soccer would hit his marks as accurately as any other actor on the show. He also was mega pleasant to be around as well. Karis Tripton would say when we'd come back from a break, we'd see him trotting into the building, his head would come up and his tail would wag. He knows right where he's at, and he's going to have to work, and he's really happy to be here.
Dogs love having a job.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what came through with this. He loved to act. And oh my God, the whole time I was wondering, like, what is this dog thinking? Like, if he's on like a Greek set and then like he's H.G. Wells, like, what? Does this dog even have any concept of what he's doing? But yeah, so he was in about 90% of the shots, with some stunt doubles picking up some of the other tasks. You had Slugger and Shiner, who did a lot of the stunts. You had Phoebe, who did a lot of the swimming portions. There was another dog named Bear, who did a lot of the public photography, so like the publicity photos. And then there was another dog named Trish as well, but I couldn't figure out a lot of information about like what their role was in all this. So when they had to travel for this show, he was always put in first class, apparently, and he had bodyguards that followed him around, and he was nicknamed the President, which is wild. And there was actually a story about them staying in a hotel room, and basically everyone left, and they left Soccer in the room by himself. And talking about Jack Russell Terriers having to be like stimulated, he just wasn't, I guess, and trashed the entire room, basically like a punk rock star, just destroying the room.
His rock star moment that you were talking about.
Hell yeah.
But then in 1998, they did Dog Days of the West. And at this time, Soccer was around 10 or 11 when he was filming it. The aftermath of just Wishbone in general, the show was a huge hit. They did a bunch of publicity for it. They went around. They had thousands of people show up to like these meet and greets that they did. Jackie mentioned that she had a hard time taking Soccer anywhere because the kids would just recognize him. And apparently she would walk around with paw print autographs with his photo on it and give them out to the kids. So
cute.
What a nice lady.
I wish I had one of those.
Some of the other things that he was involved with post-Wishbone, he presented at the Emmy Awards in LA. He also was in a Reading is Fundamental campaign with Target, so like the superstore Target. And then that video that he taped with George Bush, it was a PSA to fight illiteracy, and it was with George and Laura Bush.
Oh, yeah. I remember she had the whole thing with reading.
And then I found an IMDb credit that he's a fighter in the freeware fighting game Mugen.
Oh, I was reading about that.
I really want to know like if he like lent his like voice to it or something, or how he participated in Mugen. But
I wanted to look up what that was because it said like every character from like anything is in this game, and I need to know more.
You can have Wishbone fighting like Goku from Dragon Ball Z.
Amazing.
That would be wicked.
But after all that, and after the filming of Dog Days of the West, Jackie had mentioned that she wanted to retire Soccer early because she wanted him to have a fulfilling last couple years of his life. She wanted him to have fun. She thought this was like the prime age to let him just kind of ride out the sunset. So they stayed on her ranch until he died in 2001 on June 26th. So he's apparently buried in Planto, Texas on Jackie's ranch, although his burial site remains to be found.
It's better to burn out than to fade away.
I think what I loved too is that she talked about how she didn't want people to see him like in his elder years, like as an elderly dog. So she kept his life very private. And then she didn't tell anybody for like a good year until after he died because she wanted some like privacy for her and for him.
Oh.
So I mentioned that his burial site remains to be found. There's a website called findagrave.com where you can start looking up where people are buried, and his remains are unknown. So he might actually still be alive to this day. Who knows?
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
There's just one like really interesting thing about Soccer that I feel like we cannot not bring up. And it was my reward for diving deep into some like behind the scenes videos I found. It was like interview with Wishbone, and it was people on the set of the movie, taped by director Jim Ruddy. So at one point in one of these interviews, Soccer just starts looking off camera and he's like super focused. And the voice actor was behind the scenes for all of these, like kind of behind the camera. So he starts looking off very focused, and the voice actor's like, "Oh, a fly." And the executive producer who's being interviewed just sighs, and he's like, "Soccer's developed a fascination with bugs. He could look at bugs for hours."
Aww.
And it was like he loved bugs. And my reward for diving into these interviews was finding out that Soccer got on everybody's nerves because he wouldn't stop looking at bugs when they were trying to film. And I can just relate to that, you know?
I was going to say pretty much you. You guys would be besties.
He also apparently liked to do backflips when people weren't looking. So when he was by himself, he would just do little circles.
Oh my goodness.
That's awesome.
Some other quirks of his favorite food was dry food and skinless grilled chicken. And while he loved working and food treats, his true incentive was to play in the grass with his ball. Wishbone, the show, was a huge success and acted as a portal for many kids to learn through literature. You know, the whole point was to provide these huge, colossal books that seemed unattainable in a vessel that was easy to digest and encouraged them to want to read. The producers talked about how college kids would pass their freshman lit class because of the show. They'd reach out to them and tell them that. And so his popularity not only helped grow this educational program, but it also helped shed light on the intelligence and the abilities of Jack Russell Terriers. His on-screen presence also drove the adoption of a lot of pets from shelters or rescues because everyone wanted their own Wishbone. Unfortunately, if they went for Jack Russell Terrier because they required so much attention, a lot of people were overwhelmed. Anyways, that's all I got. I'm going to now turn it over to Audrey to do some movie magic.
Get ready for movie magic.
Okay, so there's a lot to talk about with this because it's just extensive. And I couldn't find much about the stunts in the movie themselves. I did find a couple small things, but I can talk about lots of things throughout the Wishbone universe, you know, the different episodes and stuff like that. I want to start with a quote from the article, An Oral History of Wishbone, that I really think helps you appreciate what they went through. And we've sort of alluded to this the whole time, but it's a quote from Betty Buckley, and she says, "Just think for a moment about Barney. There's a costume, it's in a studio and multi-camera, so they can run it like a play. Wishbone is in a studio and on location, 2 different complete casts for every episode, 2 different complete sets for every episode, 2 groups of extras. I mean, we had 14 carpenters and 12 painters." Following on that, Larry Brantley said, "Every week you had an art department and a production design department, and that had to turn the universe around. One week we'd be in Victorian England, then we'd be in New England, then we'd be in the Aztecs. So they had to do a lot," is really the take-home message there. So there were a few types of movie magic. First, we'll start with the key piece of magic, in my opinion, which was Soccer himself and his personality. And so, you know, he would focus on things. He loved to perform. He loved his trainer, Jackie. And that was really important to making him really great for this role. Jackie also said that he wasn't a fast learner, but he retained tricks really well. So he ended up with 40 trained behaviors by the end. What was super interesting to see is the way his voice actor, Larry, would watch Soccer and basically just do a running monologue for him. This added a lot to the movie, to the show, because he talked in an interview about how if Soccer was just doing whatever dogs do after the scene, Larry would just keep narrating. And then they would get things that they could put into the show because it was so natural. And that's part of what helped sell Wishbone as a dog.
Oh, that's cool.
There was a great example of this in those on-set interviews filmed by Jim Ruddy for Entertainment Tonight, On Set with Wishbone. A lot of those interviews with the actors, with the producers, Wishbone was on scene, or Soccer was on scene with them. He wasn't actually being interviewed, but he was there. And Larry was behind the camera, and he would just add in things from Soccer as looked appropriate. And there was one point where I was I had to be oh my God, wait, it's not the dog responding because it was so natural. So I really think the team of Larry and Soccer was the key to this show.
I wouldn't have expected the voice either,
Yes.
I feel like he put a really different take on it that maybe hadn't been done before, or nobody really did a dog voice like that.
I was going to ask how you guys felt about the voice, because at first I was a little on the fence of it being a little annoying, but then the more I got into the movie, I was no, I feel like it works for how the dog acts.
Yeah.
It definitely worked. It did, because it was so different. I think it did take me a minute. I was oh, this dog sounds funny, but I loved it. Then I just loved him.
It's hard for me because Wishbone's voice sounded like Wishbone's voice, so I didn't I didn't really think about it because I'd heard it before, but I could see that. The best way to describe it, I think, is sort of like Chance from The Incredible Journey, but a little bit more
yeah, kind of whiny.
So there was also something they did on set, which was helping the human actors respond to Wishbone. One of the questions, I don't know if you guys had this question, but as we were watching it, I was how are these actors having a full conversation just looking at a dog?
Yeah.
And as it turns out, they had a speaker where they could hear Larry in real time doing Wishbone's voice.
That's interesting.
not only did they hear the script that Larry would be reading, they also heard those improvisations. So, like, they could take it a step further and react to what he said for Wishbone.
They had like a whole walk and talk in the movie that it was like, how did they hit those beats so well?
Yeah.
It was a good idea for them to do that because they definitely got more of those genuine reactions, and you could just feel it when you were watching the movie.
Yeah, it explains a lot to me about how they were able to make it work so well. So Soccer was a fairly nervous dog with certain things. He really didn't like having his paw held. So when they had to do scenes where they like shook hands or something, they had to really kind of work towards that. He was scared of the big costumes that had big beards and things like that.
So if Jordan had to be in a scene with him right now, he would scare the piss out of that dog because his beard is out of control.
I thought it looked nice. Next, we have training Wishbone to hard things. And I want to pause for a second and see if you can guess what kind of scene, not from the movie necessarily, but just like what kind of general scene was the biggest stumper for Jackie. Like she was like, how the fuck am I going to do this?
Riding a horse. I feel like that would be insane, dude.
I love that part.
That's a good one because there was a part in that movie where he rode a horse and that was insane.
Okay, that or, well, I don't know. The scene when, I think it was during the gunfight, when he had to like hold a rope and the dude held the rope and they tripped the guy. I mean, I love that part too.
Maybe like driving a car or something though, because she said not necessarily from the movie, so it could be
driving a car.
He's a NASCAR racer in one of them.
He's Dale Earnhardt.
No, the one that stumped her the most was a sword fighting scene. She was like, how the hell am I going to make it look like Soccer is having a sword fight? And it wasn't for this movie. It was for a different episode. And basically she just said that like between the little camera tricks and things like working through different patterns and the special effects, it ended up looking really good on video. But then she gave a specific example of another one where they needed him to do a karate kick, like to kick a person. And so what she ended up doing is having him do a backflip, like doing the backflip cue while having his feet sort of like bump up against someone. And that's how they achieved the karate kick.
Whoa.
And the final question I have for you, because I know you're all wondering, is do you think Soccer was really on the horse at the end of the movie?
I hope so, because that was awesome.
That's a great question, because I talked to Jordan about that for like 10 minutes after seeing that scene. And based on how it looked like he was really on that horse. I'm saying yes.
But you're going to tell us no and ruin it.
Probably. Gonna crush my dreams.
Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I do. I do think he was really on the horse. Was it a fake horse? It wasn't a real horse. It was a guy.
According to Death of a Working Dog, Mobituaries with Mo Rocca, Wishbone was on the horse.
Yes!
It looked real as shit, dude.
I feel like the girl in Prancer. I'm so happy.
He looked real nervous. He looked super nervous.
So cute.
On that horse.
Yep, he said you even persuaded Soccer to sit calmly on the horse. So I was really excited to see that. I was wondering if it was really him or not, and I was afraid I wouldn't be able to find it, but I did. And then there was one particularly difficult thing to do. And it actually involved a stunt double that Paul did not bring up. And so this was a difficult stunt. It was just sitting for lighting while they tried to figure out the lights, because the lights are really hot and sitting for that long is really hard. So his stunt double was Neckbone.
Oh, I didn't hear Neckbone.
The name of the dog was Neckbone.
Wait, what?
Neckbone was a stuffed version of Wishbone.
Oh my goodness.
I ended up finding something glorious by trying to find out what Neckbone was, because they mentioned it as an aside on the Mo Rocca show. They were just like, oh yeah, and then there was Neckbone. And I was like, who the fuck was Neckbone?
His arch nemesis.
So then I'm like going down this huge rabbit hole trying to figure out who Neckbone was. And I ended up finding a bunch of trading cards from Wendy's. There were 20 of them that came out, and it was like
No.
one side would be a picture from the set, and then the other side would be like an explanation about what was going on. And they're actually really cool. I saved them all so I can send them to you if you want to see them.
Are we making
Oh,
them?
yeah.
I want one so bad.
To do a
Are
print?
you guys making a neck bone?
So there was a picture of Neckbone. I'll put it in the chat here. If you click on this picture, you can see Neckbone behind Wishbone.
Oh, he doesn't look anything like
Neck bone goes behind the wish.
He
bone.
looks like a wrapped
Oh.
like toy cigar or something.
Yeah,
He's so
What?
stiff.
He doesn't look anything like.
he does not.
He looks like a kid's poor drawing of a dog.
Yeah, neck bone's kind of fucked up.
Well, his whole point was just a stand-in for lighting, as you can read on this Wendy's trading card, okay? And that is how I solved the mystery of who the hell Neckbone was.
Neckbone.
The other category is camera work, visual effects, props, extensive makeup, etc. So this is a lot of things that we're familiar with. One of the ways that they got shots close to the ground that were stable is they used a skateboard rig, literally a skateboard that they would put the camera on. This was one of the gems I got from the Wendy's cards. There's one where you can see the camera, the skateboard rig. Also from the Wendy's card, there was at least one episode where they did a split screen shot to get two Sockers in one scene. So like Wishbone was playing both the Prince and the Pauper in the episode Prince and the Pooch. I really don't understand why they didn't call it Prince and like the Pauper, but
Missed opportunity.
their business. I'm sure there's a good reason they didn't do it. So lots of the camera tricks you would expect.
You got anything else, Audrey?
I do not.
All right, I'll turn it over to Melissa for some fun stuff.
All aboard for audience anecdotes. It's time for our animal reviews. Gonna ask you guys, like I do every time, what did you think of Soccer's performance as Wishbone? And I'm gonna use a rating scale for this episode. We're gonna go with out of 5 no leashes, because if we remember, Wishbone was all about being off leash.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
the rating scale I came up with.
5 no leashes.
5 no leashes.
Yeah, agreed. Hard 5.
Yeah, 5.
5 million no leashes.
The costumes alone put him to a 5.
He was on screen like in every single shot, dude.
Yep.
I think it was like 90% of the scenes had him in it.
Yeah, non-stop, just like he was there and he killed it like every single time. Except for the horse riding scene. All right, I'll give him a 3 out of 5 because he was nervous in the horse riding scene.
Wait,
Excuse me?
are you kidding?
Are you, like, trying to make me angry?
Sorry guys, he was nervous in that scene. I just remembered.
But, Paul, when have you ever seen
That scene was so good.
a dog ride a horse?
That dog had to have been scared on the back of that horse. Are you
I thought
kidding
the
me?
same thing. I was like, this poor dog.
I'm scared on horses.
He was probably, like, nervous farting the whole time.
The horse or the tiny
possibly
soccer?
both.
Maybe both. It's one of those stories where they both were nervous but neither knew it.
Oh, they had to cut it out.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, 5 out of 5.
I agree with everybody. 5 out of 5 no leashes. I just can't believe how on screen this dog was. Like, was it, I think you just said, Audrey, 90% of the movie. And you can, I mean, it's just amazing. Again, a lot of the stuff we've watched, the animals haven't been on the screen consistently throughout the entire thing. I think Soccer was incredible. The outfits wrecked me. Like, I was just obsessed with the little cowboy outfits. Like, that alone sold it to me 100%.
There was a behind the scenes video where the costume designer was in it. And the interviewer's like, so what's the biggest challenge with making costumes for dogs? And the guy was like, well, he's a dog. Like, he's small. He's different anatomy than a person. You know, it's like, okay.
Now we're going to move on and take a look at some audience reviews. Rotten Tomatoes Popcorn Meter gave the movie a 40%, which I thought was pretty shocking because it was a good movie, but that seemed like a low rating to me. And then I also noticed that there were no reviews, but I was able to find a couple of interesting ones on Letterboxd. It had a average rating of 3 stars, and the first rating is from Anna, and she actually gave it 5 stars. She said, incredible riz from Western Wishbone. Has a genuinely moving speech from Mame Dugan about the numbness one experiences in the servitude of toxic masculinity, and an action scene where a drunk cowboy shoots up the town. I mean...
Well said.
Yeah.
5 stars.
I can get behind that, yeah.
The next review was written by Jordan. Jordan, was this you?
He's just been writing reviews for this.
Shh.
Gave it 3 stars. Jordan's review says, and I have to emphasize this, in all caps, bold all caps, give Wishbone a gun.
I don't have a gun.
I don't have a gun.
Hard agree, dude.
Wishbone a gun, please. Different movie.
They gave him a deputy badge. Why couldn't they give him a gun?
Exactly.
Like if a human hand would have came out with a gun.
That would have been amazing. The third and final review is from Kim, and I'm a little confused as to why she only gave it a 1 star based on her review, but she said, Wishbone, like she's talking like she's him. I'm a political prisoner. Aren't we all? I feel like we're feeling that right now with everything that's happening in the world, so I thought that was an appropriate review.
Beautiful.
For this episode. So thank you, Kim. Now it's time for our surprise scenario, everybody's favorite part of the podcast. And I noticed with the Wishbone show, most episodes have him turning into a character from either like an older novel or like a classic novel, some kind of classic literature. So my question is, what more modern tale would you put him in, and which character would he play?
I would put him as Paul Atreides, dude. I would do the movie Dune, and he would be Paul Atreides, and it would be like a 6-episode special, dude, and he would nail it. He'd have to learn the Freeman speech. He'd have to learn how to do the sand dance across the sand, dude. He'd have to learn. We'd get to see him ride one of those giant worms, man. Like, that would be
I knew
rad.
You were going to, I had a feeling you were going to do Dune, or like that was at least going to cross your mind.
They'd have to put him in a cute little Freeman suit. So, like, he'd have, like, the little, like, black tight thing. Oh, God. It would be adorable.
I have one, but I can't think of the name of the freaking movie for some reason. You know the one that has Amy Adams in it, and there's aliens, and she's learning how to talk to them?
Arrival.
So Arrival is based on a short story in a collection.
So wait, would he be Amy Adams or?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Amazing.
Holy shit. Him looking at that word pattern and deciphering it.
For sure. And like he'd be like, "What is that, a bone or something?" when he's looking at the pattern.
That would be so cute.
Dude, holy shit.
I feel like he'd be great in that role. And I think that it would pair nicely with a modern, like there's like a lesson to be learned in that story that they could do nicely with like a modern equivalent. You know how they do the real world and then the fantasy world. I feel like that'd be really easy with Arrival.
That's a good tie-in. Good tie-in to the show, yeah. For some reason, the costumes, again, stuck in my head because very impressive. And I just thought it would be really cute to see him play Coraline. And I thought about, because Coraline is technically a book before it was a movie. And it came out in I think it was like the early 2000s. So I would love to see him play her. I would love to see him in a little yellow raincoat with his little like yellow rubber boots. And I don't know. I just think he'd be cute. I'd like to see his interactions with the other mother. I think it would be great. It'd be really entertaining.
I have so many that I'm just like, oh, okay, this. And I'm like, no, okay, this. He's going to be Kelsier in Mistborn. That way we get a Mistborn movie.
No.
And Wishbone is playing Kelsier.
I love it.
Here's what I really think we need, which is Wishbone Hamilton.
Oh, that I would watch the shit out of.
That could bring it back.
Dude, are you talking about like the musical, the Lin-Manuel Miranda?
Yes.
Because then like that voice actor would have to learn how to rap like him, and that would be insane.
Somebody petition him to do that.
Lafayette? Could you?
How can these motherfuckers?
But I was also thinking a runner-up to mine. Not that I need to have two, but I also thought it would be really cute to see him in Jurassic Park, because again, was a novel before a movie.
Love that.
And
yeah.
him dressed as like a little T-Rex or a raptor or something.
Oh, he'd be a dinosaur.
I would like him to be a dinosaur. What if he was a dog
Interesting.
playing a
I was
dinosaur?
thinking he would be Malcolm.
Oh.
Ian Malcolm.
Yeah.
What if he was Mrs. Doubtfire? Right?
Mary Poppins.
Yeah. He would have to like dip his face into the cream and be like, hello.
But he like dressed as a cat.
He dressed as a cat. That's a great interpretation of it, actually.
Yeah, no, you're right. That would be a great interpretation.
Mr. Dogfire.
So you dip his face into like cat food and come out as a cat?
Meow!
Oh my god.
Lastly, we have adopt, take to the no-kill shelter, or taxidermy. For this, I chose Wishbone, Wanda Gilmore, and then Mame Dugan's cooking. Not her cooking.
Okay.
Oh, yo.
You're making this real hard, Mel.
I gotta
Yo.
get you guys thinking to see what kind of reactions.
That was a curveball, man. I was not thinking food. Okay.
There is no way on planet Earth that I'm passing up adopting Wishbone. Like, I'm absolutely adopting Wishbone. Wanda, I'll send to the no-kill shelter because I love Wanda. I'm really hoping I can continue to hang out with her after she gets adopted. And then I'm going to taxidermy, so like put in a museum Mame's cooking. And there's a reason. There's a reason for this. And it's because Mame doesn't fuck around people who eat her food because it makes her think of biped ruminants.
Man. Oh, yeah, biped ruminants.
And so, yeah, exactly.
And then all that food could go to the shelter, and you could save like a lot of animals by giving them food. But you want to taxidermy it?
Yeah.
But also, if it's taxidermied and it's in a museum, it's also showing you what like fine cuisine should be. No.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and that ends my analysis. Go ahead.
I'm going to... I don't think taxidermying Wishbone means that you're killing him, right? That just means that, like, at the end of his life, he's being taxidermied. Okay.
Unless you want him sooner.
It's whatever you want it to mean.
Yeah, it's when you want him to be.
I'm going to do that because Wishbone's going to be looking fine in my living room, just standing there. I'm going to adopt the cooking. Because then it's mine and I get to eat it. And then the no-kill shelter will be Wanda because she was awesome. She deserves a good home.
I'm close. I would adopt the food, especially because we have kids, Audrey. So we always worry about what they eat. We would have someone cooking our food for our kids to have healthy food.
You think they're going to eat the food?
Audrey, kids in other countries are starving, and you want to taxidermy this beautiful meal that Mame puts together?
Looks like I'm the only one banging Mame because everybody else is eating or cooking. So.
That is not part of the question, dude. That is not part of the question because everyone would be banging Mame if that were the case.
No, because you're eating the food.
Get it? Because she doesn't like people who eat all the food. So the opposite, you'd be banging her. Yeah. Also, the food's not healthy, but it's good. It was like fried chicken and biscuits.
You don't think it's healthy?
No, it's
you don't think you could be like, hey,
Southern
in moderation,
fried cooking.
It's cowboy food, dude. It's just like beans and like grilled chicken, man.
It was fried chicken.
Fried chicken.
Do I have to pull up an image?
Our kids can eat fried chicken. Our kids can eat fried chicken.
Sticks of butter.
Did you say dicks of butter?
Dicks of butter?
No, sticks of butter. Sticks.
Dicks of butter.
Big old dicks of butter.
Big old...
Big old dicks of butter.
I am adopting the food. I am going to taxidermy Wanda, and I will send Wishbone to the no-kill shelter.
Send him away.
I would adopt Wishbone. He's so cute. And again, everybody knows I'm not so much a dog person, but I was obsessed with him in this movie. And I'd make him wear little costumes all the time. So Now I'm going to take Mame Dugan's cooking to the no-kill shelter, kind of what Paul said, to feed all those animals.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Delicious. And then I'm going to taxidermy Wanda, but because I love her, after she lives a full life, I'll taxidermy her and she can hang around in one of her cool outfits and be an accessory, like, to our household.
Meanwhile, me, Mame, and Wanda are going to be besties. And Wishbone, for that matter, because I've adopted him. So I'm just going to have the coolest crew. And you losers are all not going to have the coolest crew.
This is assuming that she would, like, take you in, you know? Well, and, like, Mame, maybe she's not into you, dude. And maybe she'll,
maybe we wouldn't be friends, but there's a chance.
That's true.
Yeah, there's always a chance.
You got to shoot your shot, dude. If you don't shoot your shot, you never know.
Audrey wins.
Cool. All right, that was great. Do you have anything else?
Nope, that's it, Paul.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you everyone for joining us for today's episode. It was a total blast. And if you stick around with us next month, we're going to be doing the 1995 film Operation Dumbo Drop featuring Ty the Elephant. So if you enjoyed the show, please go ahead and rate and review us, leave a comment. You can also go to our social channels on Facebook and Instagram. Leave a comment, start following us there as well. Check out our website for our transcripts and a lot of fun stuff on there. Finally, I want to thank my co-hosts Jordan, Melissa, and Audrey for being with me today. So we'll see y'all later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye. Good night.
Goodbye. So long.
Alvitas and goodbye.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Adios, amigos.
Thank you for listening to Hoofin in Hollywood. This podcast has been produced by Paul, Audrey, Melissa, and Jordan. Please note that this content is intended for entertainment purposes only. We are not professional researchers, and the views and opinions expressed are our own. For more information and links to the resources mentioned in this episode, please check the show notes or visit our website at bit.ly/Hoofin-Hollywood. If you found this episode enjoyable and wish to support the podcast, we kindly ask you to like, subscribe, and leave a rating or review on your preferred podcast platform.